Hello everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. Today I'm going to be talking about one of the most controversial musicals in recent history. Love Never Dies. See, I'm wearing my t-shirt for the occasion. So, last night, from when I'm filming this video, I saw Ramin Karimloo in concert with Anna O'Byrne. So, the musical that has been occupying my brain for the past little while has been Love Never Dies. Well, except Hamilton, because Hamilton's always in my head at the moment. For those who don't know, Love Never Dies is Andrew Lloyd Webber's sequel to his 1986 most popular musical of all time, Phantom of the Opera. And depending on how you feel about Phantom, you'll either love Love Never Dies or you'll hate it. Personally, I love it. It's been criticised as being unnecessary and very fanficky, and I can definitely see where people are coming from. It is completely unnecessary. The ending to Phantom is perfectly fine. And yes, it is very, very fanficky. But hey, I love fanficky. Link to my profile in the down below. But despite all those criticisms, I really like Love Never Dies, and so today I'm here to defend it. I first saw Love Never Dies when it came to Sydney in 2012, and it was, for all intents and purposes, my introduction to the Phantom of the Opera universe, or at least the Andrew Lloyd Webber version. I haven't seen Phantom of the Opera on stage. I've only seen the DVD version with Ramin. I'd really like to see it on stage, but at this point I have not. So I'm just going to be going with the thoughts I have from watching said DVD and hearing about it, rather than actual first-hand experience. So apologies if I'm missing something from Phantom or I'm getting something wrong. I do think Phantom of the Opera is probably technically a better musical, but I prefer Love Never Dies. Though that might just be because I haven't seen Phantom in person. So even if you have no interest in Love Never Dies as an actual musical, try and look up versions of the songs because some of them are just amazing. Mainly the title song, Love Never Dies. It's one of my favourite musical theatre songs of all time. It's my favourite song in both Phantom and Love Never Dies. And Anna sings it amazingly, and she did last night. Link in the down below to her performance off the DVD. That's the other thing. The version I saw was basically the DVD. If you buy it on DVD, you will see the version I saw. A different kid was playing Gustav because it was filmed in Melbourne and I saw it in Sydney. But other than that, everything on the DVD is exactly what I saw. As far as I'm aware, nothing changed after it came to Australia, but it did go through a whole bunch of rewrites and changes before that. If you look up images of it, you'll see there are differences in at least the costumes. Ramin did Love Never Dies with Sierra Boggess before it came to Australia, and a lot of things had changed by that point. Last night, Anna brought up one of the costumes she had worn in Love Never Dies, and Ramin had no idea what she was talking about. Now I'm just going to give a brief little plot summary of Love Never Dies, so obviously spoilers, you have been warned. There might be some more spoilers later on in the video for both Love Never Dies and Phantom. I'll leave a message up on the screen when I talk about them so you can mute or skip or whatever you want to do if you don't want to hear the spoilers. Love Never Dies is set 10 years after the fire at the Opera Populaire. I'm not sure where that lines up exactly with the Phantom timeline. I'm honestly not sure when Phantom takes place. I've read a lot of different dates and I can't be entirely sure. If you do know, let me know down below. But Love Never Dies is set in 1905, the same year as the prologue of Phantom, and this is important, I'll get back to it later. By this point in the story, the Phantom, I'm going to call him Eric, has relocated to Coney Island, along with Meg Giri and Meg, and he runs a freak show, sideshow, circus type thing. But of course he still wants Christine. So he lures her out to Coney Island to sing for him. When Christine arrives on Coney Island with Raoul and her son Gustave, There are a lot of things that happen, but the basics are that, obviously, Eric wants her to sing, which is why he lured her out there in the first place. She ends up singing essentially for her life and freedom, and then Eric lets her go in the end. When you put it like that, it's sort of a reboot. Now I'm going to go into 3 things I believe Love Never Dies has over Phantom of the Opera. Again, I have not seen Phantom on stage, I've only watched the DVD. Where I have seen Love Never Dies on stage, I have also watched the DVD, but I have seen it on stage, so forgive me if I have missed anything. But I have 3 things that I believe Phantom doesn't have that Love Never Dies does. The first is about everyone's favourite Vicon, Raoul. I don't think Raoul is the most boring character in Phantom of the Opera. That distinction definitely has to go to Freddie Eynsford Hill of My Fair Lady. But I still think Raoul's pretty flawless. He certainly does a lot more than Freddie. Mind you, my favourite character is Eric, so I guess I'm sort of biased against Raoul. Either way, I think Raoul's far more flawed in Love Never Dies, and therefore far more interesting. He drinks and he gambles, and the fact that he's completely broke is a major point in the second act of Love Never Dies. My next point is about another character, Miss Meg Giri. If I think Freddie Eynsford Hill is the most boring character in all of theatre history, at least as far as I know, Meg Giri is the most pointless character in all of musical theatre history, at least in Phantom. I really don't know why she's in Phantom. She's not necessary at all. Yes, we need somebody to ask Christine about her Angel of Music, and we need somebody to find the mask at the end, but I don't understand why it has to be a specific person. As far as I can see, it would change nothing if the person who did those things was an unnamed chorus member. Again, haven't seen Phantom, so I might be missing something, but I always thought the point was that Meg asked Christine about the Angel of Music rather than Meg asked Christine about the Angel of Music. That Meg found the mask rather than Meg found the mask. I really don't know what she's there for. She's pointless in the book as well. If I remember correctly, she has 3 mentions in the novel, and 2 of those are exactly that, mentions. One's in the fictitious acknowledgements section at the beginning, and one is when Madame Giri mentions her to the opera owners as to why she's helping Eric. The other is not unlike the scene in the musical where she asks Christine about her Angel of Music, but there's a whole bunch of other girls in that scene in the book, and she's not the one who asks her about her Angel of Music, she's just standing there. But like with Raoul, things are different in Love Never Dies. Raoul's more flawed in Love Never Dies, but Meg is actually necessary to the story. And I technically get that it probably wouldn't work for Meg to be in Love Never Dies if she hadn't been in Phantom in the first place, but I honestly think changing one little bit about the plot in Love Never Dies could have made her unnecessary in Phantom and necessary in Love Never Dies. All we needed was one tiny little mention of Madame Giri having a daughter, and then we wouldn't need her to be in Phantom at all, and still have Love Never Dies work exactly as it is. But again, regardless of that, Meg is necessary to the plot of Love Never Dies. Because Eric doesn't have Christine, she's the star of his little sideshow, but being not Christine, Eric's never satisfied with her and takes the action that I mentioned earlier. And we find out at the end of the show that Meg's become a prostitute to bring in money because the sideshow isn't doing all that well. So she has a very active reason for hating Eric and the situation she's in, and therefore becoming a sort of antagonist for Christine and her presence out in Coney Island during the musical. And the final thing I think Love Never Dies has over Phantom is the prologue of Phantom. More specifically that when Love Never Dies is taken into account, the prologue of Phantom becomes part of the story. I've watched Lindsay Ellis's video essay about all the problems with the film version of Phantom, link in the down below. And she talks about how the prologue is just there as a way to get to the overture. Personally, I don't see why the overture just can't start as is. I don't know what specifically means Phantom's overture can't just start the way any other musical does. But I guess that's sort of the point. The prologue of Phantom of the Opera has no purpose as far as the story goes. The show ends with Meg finding the mask. It's not as though Phantom's told entirely in flashback. Unless you take Love Never Dies into account, because then it is almost a flashback. So spoilers coming up now. As I've mentioned, Raoul has a serious money problem in Love Never Dies, and so at the beginning of Act 2, he and Eric make a bet. Obviously Eric wants Christine to sing, and Raoul doesn't because he knows what happened last time Eric got Christine to sing. They make the bet that if Christine sings, Raoul has to leave Coney Island by himself, and if she doesn't sing, Raoul wins and Eric will pay off all his debts. Obviously, as I mentioned, Christine does sing, and just by that act, Raoul has to leave Coney Island by himself. By the end of the show, he has lost the bet he made with Eric, his wife, and his son. And Gustave stays with Eric on Coney Island at the end because Christine gets shot. Love never dies, but apparently Christine Daae can. Ignoring how over-the-top and fanficky and unnecessary and ridiculous Love Never Dies is as a whole, would it be that much of a stretch to think at the end of the musical Raoul returned to Paris and went back to the Opera Populaire, where he saw the auction in place and bought the monkey music box and the chandelier ascended and Phantom of the Opera started? If you look at it that way, like I do, the entirety of Phantom becomes a flashback and the prologue is actually part of the narrative. And if you want to say I'm making this up and making assumptions in that, this musical has already been criticised for being fanficky, so that's everything for today's video. Let me know in the comments, have you seen Love Never Dies? Have you seen Phantom? What's your favourite song? What's your favourite part? What did you think of them in general? Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. So long, farewell! Ramin is seriously one of the funniest people I've ever seen. I did not expect him to be as awesome as he was, but he was, well, awesome. Chatting with the audience and pointing out people, like a person walked in late and he stopped singing so that he could tell them specifically what he was singing. It was just a ton of fun.